Hey everyone, welcome back to the In the Slot podcast, myself, Connor, joined by Josh, Henry and Chris, all co-hosting episode 4 of our podcast. And I wanted to start this where we left off from last week, and that's with the In the Slot Busters game. Now, I know everyone was thrilled with it. I asked for comments on the YouTube channel, and we did not get any, which is a shame for this week, but we're hoping as we continue that we start to get a lot more comments and people eager to win the prize that we have. But before, and obviously we haven't got any guesses from anyone externally, but obviously I put it to the co-hosts and I'd love to hear their thoughts now on what their guess was. And just to reiterate what the clue was to jog everyone's memory, it was, I'm famous for Greek mythology, but boy, do I need painkillers. So over to you guys. What did you think?
Yeah, I got this one straight away. I'll just say that. I was right in there. Easily guessed this one. Probably we need to crank it up a level for next time, Connor. That would be what I would say. Troy Aikman. It doesn't hurt that it's a Cowboys fan who wrote the first one. It had to be one of the biggest elements of a Cowboys team in history. But yeah, that was an easy one for me.
Well, as it was with the clue, it was our first round. I started off going along the lines of injuries and injury-prone players, and my first guess was along the lines of Jalen Hurts, but Josh then butted in and got it fairly quickly. To be fair to him, so well done, Josh. You get week 1.
Yeah, that was a gimme. Chris, did you think anyone was in your mind you were thinking of?
I had a similar thought to Henry, and my thought would have been Zach Ertz. Going along that pain, sort of aches and pains theme there.
Yeah. So, it was really interesting to hear because when I actually came up with that, I didn't even for a moment think that people would go down the route of injuries. I know painkillers is obviously very on that line, but I was genuinely thinking more about my point and my point only as to the correct answer. So it's really interesting to hear what line you went down. And for those who continue listening later into the podcast, I'm doing episode or game week 2 of the In the Slot of In the Slot Busters. So if you stick around, you'll hear this week's clue, and again we'll reveal that at the beginning of next week's pod. So stick around for the clue. Cheers,
Connor. Yeah, tongue in cheek there. Obviously, it was a tough one at first. I thought Dak Prescott. I was going down the actual real life injury side. So yeah, let's see if game week 2 of In the Slot Busters garners a bit more attention. Hopefully we get some YouTube comments. We can start to include some community members. We have upped the prize for this week, so I won't steal your thunder, Connor. When you move on to the section, you can announce that. But there's probably something which people are a little bit more interested in.
Yeah. And also, just before we move on, I know we're moving away from that game in particular, but just one point to highlight from me. Obviously, we had a lot more viewers this week, and for us, that's as the 3 of us starting out, or as the 4 of us, starting out a brand new podcast. It's really exciting to see that we've got more viewers listening, and we hope that continues. So anyone who is listening, make sure you do share it off to people you know. If you did enjoy it, please like and also subscribe.
Yeah, and definitely drop us a comment down below who you think the 4th member of a podcast is that Connor doesn't consider a co-host. We'd love to know.
Let us know who's getting cut next week.
Yeah, yeah. Before the rest of us had figured it out. All we know is Connor's one of the 3 in the 3, so it's me, Chris, and Henry all sat on the hot seat. Connor did take over my role as leading the podcast, so I don't know. Maybe I'm going to get the
you should be the most worried.
Yeah, I am the most worried.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I'll get a letter in the post this week.
Well, that's a fun game to play for next week as well. So leave a comment in the section below and and let us know who you think will be axed.
Yeah. But let's go to fantasy football now. So we're recording this Wednesday evening in the UK. So the Steelers-Ravens game has not yet been finished. So the booms and busts this week probably won't include any players from those games. I would say, one obvious boom is obviously Tyreek Hill. I think that's probably a historic performance from a wide receiver in fantasy football. In our league, which is standard scoring, no PPR points, he scored 51.9. So I can only imagine what in PPR points he was putting up, probably sort of 60s. Henry, for you this week, other than Tyreek Hill, any booms or busts that stood out?
Yeah, I think obviously that is the one that stuck out to start with, Josh, and he helped me a long way to a fantasy win this week. Other people who I really enjoyed watching this week and who had a great week, Justin Jefferson, just every week now, the Vikings rookie wide receiver. He's now 8th in the NFL in yards, scored another 2 touchdowns this week. And we've had a quick discussion about this on the pod before, but I now think he is the best receiver from that rookie wide receiver class. And they're all having very good years. Judy, CeeDee Lamb and Ruggs in particular. But Jefferson, for me, just an incredible season, incredible talent. Really shocking that he fell that far now when you look at what he did at LSU. Another one I wanted to mention was AJ Brown. Huge win for the Titans and back to his best, looking a lot better than he has the previous 2 weeks when he struggled with drops. But really enjoy watching AJ Brown. 98 yards, 2 touchdowns, huge divisional win to put the Titans top of the division. Love that. And then finally, I'm going to give a shout out to Wayne Gallman, who was my one to keep an eye on last week. Did have a good game week. 94 yards and a touchdown in a struggling Giants offense, but still is looking fairly good. So they were 3 that I enjoyed this week.
Yeah, thanks, Henry. And it's interesting. I think typically in fantasy, it's been a mainstay that a rookie running back has been one of the top scorers at their position, but never usually a consistently performing wide receiver. Not since Odell Beckham. This season, obviously, been completely different. Do you think that says more about the Wookiee wide receiver class as a whole, Henry?
I do. I think this is a special class. And I think Jefferson by nature is always going to be an excellent fantasy player. He's got that mixture of being able to play inside and outside. Is in an offense where he's going to be on the field 90+% of the time. Also a massive touchdown threat. So those combined just make him a great fantasy player as well as a great real world player. But you're right, it's rare to find that combination so young.
Yeah, exactly. Connor, what about you? Any booms or busts this week that really stood out for you?
Yeah, I've got a few booms, a few busts just based on the high expectation that we normally expect of them, normally see off them. So like Diggs, Hopkins after that big game the week before, and also Josh Jacobs was a bit of a bust as well this week. Also, just a few to highlight in terms of like quarterbacks who I suppose more of a fantasy bust in their entirety is Jared Goff, Cam Newton, both players that just didn't perform this week for their respective owners. And then one particular boom to highlight, just fresh out of a long stint of injury, is Austin Eckler for a great game to return. Probably a lot of people kicking themselves for having left them on his on their benches. So he's a particular boom for me as well.
Yeah, great. And whilst you're on the line of quarterbacks who underperformed this week, Derek Carr had a woeful week, and as did Kyler Murray.
All of the Raiders, didn't they?
Yeah, all of the Raiders.
Dreadful game.
Exactly. Yeah, and Kyler Murray, who also had a very poor game. Chris, anyone who stood out for you this week as a boom or a bust?
Well, you just named 2 of them there, Kyler Murray and Derek Carr as my busts there. Obviously, I was personally affected by Derek Carr in my fantasy league, which didn't go very well. Running back bust, Alvin Kamara. I would be interested to hear your thoughts on how he's been affected by Taysom Hill coming in, another 2 rushing touchdowns, and Kamara is obviously not taking the dump offs that he was getting from Brees. So he took -2 yards through the air in this game. And then on the other side, boom, Derrick Henry. What a monster this man is. He is absolutely huge. I saw a stat out there. So this was only the 3rd 100-yard game allowed by the Colts in the past 3 seasons. Do you guys know who had the other 2 games?
I'm going to take a wild guess at Derrick Henry for both.
Yes, it was Derrick Henry, the only person to have scored more than 100 yards rushing, I believe, against the Indianapolis Colts. He got 3 touchdowns in this game, 178 yards on 27 rushing attempts. What a man!
Yeah, great stat there, Chris. Always love those. Keep an ear tuned for them. Antonio Gibson, didn't he have a big week as well? Was he your pick of the week last week, Chris?
He was. I don't think it was on this week just gone. I think it was the week before. But yeah, another big week. 3 touchdowns. Obviously playing against a soft matchup with the Dallas Cowboys, but you got to get it done, and he keeps on getting better, the rookie.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously we also saw someone else put up some big numbers, which was Will Fuller, but he's been mired in controversy this week, out for 6-game suspension, which basically means he's out of fantasy football playoff contention, which is a big hit for a lot of Will Fuller owners who've been pleasantly surprised. You also talked about Alvin Kamara underperforming. Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook both had busts this week for me. And then rounding off the busts, Tyler Lockett seems to be eternally on this list, usually for the bust designation more than anything else. But yeah, thanks guys. It was an interesting week. Maybe after the Steelers-Ravens game, there would be another one to add to the list either side, but we'll let you at home decide that one. Henry, did you have anyone else you wanted to add on?
Just a quick one that I wanted to mention. Just a really, really cool stat from this weekend was Jeremy Chin, Panthers rookie safety. First time in NFL history, they're still checking the record books. First time in NFL history that a defensive player scored touchdowns on back-to-back plays, which is incredible. Absolutely amazing. So not particularly fancy relevant unless you're playing the Panthers defense, but a really cool stat. Really, really promising player as well. Really exciting safety. So just wanted to mention that one.
Yeah, and obviously, it's so rare that you can get it on back-to-back. If you're on defense and you score a touchdown, then you get the next possession as defense again. So I'm confident if they do validate that one, that besides obviously the extra point and the kickoff, that will be the closest together that any player scored a back-to-back touchdown anyway as well. But yeah, so great. Nice to hear some booms and busts again for the week. Henry, you were going to take us through some Super Bowl predictions. Obviously, if for any of those who tuned in to Tony Romo's commentary of the Chiefs versus Bucs game, he made a really bold prediction there. Always love a bit of Tony Romo commentary. I think he's been really good value, added a lot of insight for fans who've been looking to develop their NFL knowledge to the next level. His prediction was that Chiefs-Bucs game was going to be the rematch for the Super Bowl, obviously in Tampa Bay. Henry, take us through this section.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Josh. And this sort of segment and discussion was inspired by you mentioning that in our group chat, the fact that Romo brought that up, and I definitely echo your thoughts. I think he's been great in the commentary box. Really adds a new dimension to that. So. As we've discussed before on this pod, I've actually been pretty high on the Bucs all season, and I know to the rest of my co-hosts sort of agree to varying extents on that one. But what I wanted to do is revisit really the playoff race and mostly who we think will actually make it to the Super Bowl from the AFC and NFC. Do we agree with Romo? And if we don't, who do we think is going to be taking those places? A lot of the playoff race now, particularly division winners in a lot of the divisions, are becoming pretty clear. Half the divisions have decent leads as the leaders. So interested to see. I thought we'd start with the AFC. There's probably more consensus there, I think. So let's just throw it open to you guys. What are your thoughts on the AFC race? Are we seeing the Chiefs as the clear favourites? Can you see anyone dethroning them? Chris, I'll come to you first.
For me, I think the Kansas City Chiefs have to be the favourite. Obviously, Super Bowl champs last year, Mahomes, Kelsey, Tyreek Hill. We see it every week in, week out. Monster performances, good head coach, good offensive themes to their play, ingenious play calling. It's it has to be the Kansas City Chiefs. If it's not them, for whatever reason they meet, for me, either the Tennessee Titans. We called them one of our power rankings. We did them in one of the first pods. I think they keep on going from strength to strength. Obviously had a down week a couple weeks back against the Colts, but Tannehill keeps getting it done. AJ Brown, you talked on Derrick Henry. They have absolutely everything and a good head coach as well. And then I'm going to put the Steelers out into there as well. I don't think we quite have it. Something isn't clicking, but only unbeaten team left. But Kansas City or Tennessee for me from the AFC.
Great, yeah. And Chris, how much weight do you think you're going to put on that Steelers-Bills game? I think that's coming up in 2 weeks' time. Is that big for you, or do you feel like Big Ben's just different in the playoffs anyway?
I think we've probably got enough to beat the Bills. I'm not that worried about the Bills personally. So if James Conner can come back from the COVID IR and be fit, obviously he has his own previous medical problems that we all know. But I think our defense would stand up to Josh Allen.
Okay, interesting. What are your thoughts there? Anyone else, Josh, or in agreement with the Chiefs, sort of as the unanimous favourite?
Yeah, I think it says a lot about the Chiefs that they can be in the same division, and it equally says a lot about the Steelers that the Steelers can be sat at 10-0. And in my opinion, the Chiefs are, the only team to consider from the AFC. Chris touched on it. Brilliant in all aspects. Obviously had one down week against the Raiders, but all teams have to have a down week at some point. I don't see that any other AFC team will make it there, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much of the same agreement. I think probably you guys all know, and that I'm huge Mahomes Chiefs fans, and I think they are undoubtedly the best team in the NFL right now. If I were to put money on the race, then I think that the Chiefs have to be the huge favourites, not just for the AFC, but for the Super Bowl, for Mahomes and Andy Reid to get their second ring. Connor, do you agree? What are your thoughts?
Completely agree. Yeah, no, I completely agree as well. Completely echo what you say as well. Just a huge fan of what they're capable of doing, the way their team is, the excitement of the players, the excitement of their team all round, and I think that goes to show week in, week out. And yeah, to echo everyone's points, it's just showing that they're able to do it, and that they should and deserve to be the clear favourites.
Yeah. So for me, as I said, I agree. I'm a lot higher on the Bills than it sounds like. I know Josh and Chris, you're not too concerned about the Bills going into the playoffs. For me, the Bills are the clear second team in the AFC. And I think if anyone can match up reasonably well with the Chiefs, it would be the Bills. I think they're a really smart team. They're really well coached, and they've had excellent quarterback play. They've got a variety of weapons, and I think they're one of the teams that could keep up with the Chiefs in terms of scoring. And I think you're probably going to have to score 40 points in the playoffs to knock out the Chiefs. I'm not sure I can see many other teams in the AFC doing that. Connor, do you see the Bills standing a chance, or are you more like Josh and Chris, where you don't think they're in the same league?
I don't think they are just yet.
But maybe in a couple of years. Do you think
maybe
they're
in the future?
still growing?
Yeah. I think there's that potential to be there. I think they're still learning a lot. As they go up, they're, I suppose, reasonably new to this level of success and to this level of performance. And I do think that we'll probably see something very similar to the Ravens of last season.
Interesting. Okay, so do you think if the Bills won a playoff game, that would be a successful season for them?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I need to check the stats on that, but I think it's been an unbelievably long time since they've had a playoff run, like 10 plus years. I'll check that for next week. But,
and who knows? Like you're saying, if they do go off and win a game, what could that do to that confidence that we're saying right now is potentially going to be knocked?
Yeah.
But because so easily, if you get the confidence to do it, it's now, can we do it?
Yeah, really good point. So, Josh, if you remember a few weeks ago, we had that discussion where we're talking about Wilson, Rodgers, and Mahomes, and sort of how many Super Bowls they'll win in their careers. I think you made quite a bold claim that you didn't think Mahomes would win one for a few years. Has he changed your mind with sort of the larger sample size this year, or are you still got some of the same concerns that you had before?
Yeah, great question, Henry. Thanks for bringing that one up again. Definitely my perspective has changed. I think Mahomes has really proved to me that he is a league of his own as a quarterback. I think before, I thought potentially he'd been inflated a little bit with a smart offensive-minded coach, good offensive weapons, and also riding off the high of a confidence of being someone who kind of, in my view, was very fortunate in the Super Bowl matchup he had, which was ruled by nerves by both sides, and they just came out, took a hold of the game, and then never let go from there. But this season so far, since the bounce back from the Raiders loss, I definitely view him in a completely different category. I would change that. I do still think that he will have a big part of his challenge this season. If he kicks on and wins the Super Bowl, then he'll cement himself as one of the all-time great. I'm sure he'll deliver back-to-back Super Bowls if he does so. Back to back, maybe even.
Yeah, well, that would be incredible. I think, yeah, I'm in agreement. The Chiefs are set up to win for the next 5-10 years. They're in a great place. Had a quick look at the NFL receiving yardage leaders before the pod. Josh, we're pleased to see DK's top. Unsurprising, having an amazing season. Can anyone guess who's second?
Connor.
It's not Connor. Connor is not the second leading receiver.
I thought it was going to be Travis Kelce. I was trying to tee him up for Travis Kelce.
There you go. It's Connor's boy. Kelce is third. He's third, and Tyreek Hill is second. Yeah. So 2 of the top 3 receivers in the league are Chiefs. So that shows the dominance of their passing attack. But brilliant, big consensus on that. Any final thoughts on the AFC, or happy to move over to the NFC for now?
Yeah, definitely NFC.
Brilliant. Sorry, Connor, go ahead.
No, nothing.
Okay. So NFC, I think the waters are a little muddier. It's a tougher conference to call. The division leaders aren't quite as dominant, although there are sort of 2 or 3 clear favourites in a few of the divisions. Romo obviously is confident in the Bucs, and I think in our power rankings 2 weeks ago, I believe, I was the only one to have the Bucs in the top 5. Obviously, since then, lost to the Chiefs, but close. They came back and battled hard. In the end, the spread for that game was 3.5 points. So the Bucs in the end covered that spread to keep it a close game. Let's come to you, Chris. What are your thoughts on the Bucs? Has that changed? Would they make your top 5 power rankings now, do you think? Or is there some other teams that you think are in a different league in the NFC?
I think if they can show a bit more consistency, they're definitely going to be up there. Like all the comparison, all the positive comments we said about the Chiefs, I think the Bucs have got that. Obviously, Tom Brady, the GOAT, fantastic receiving weapons, potentially a good running back in Ronald Jones or Leonard Fournette, whoever decides to play and can catch balls. And also a solid defense. And if you compare them to the other 2 picks that I've highlighted, Seattle Seahawks and Green Bay Packers, for my NFC teams, I think that the Bucs defense is better at this stage, at least.
Okay, and how important do you think that is as a defense to be that much better, or do you think, like, in the end of the day, the explosive Packers and Seahawks offense will be more important come playoff time?
Well, I think we've seen it that if you have Russell Wilson, for example, or Aaron Rodgers, they can lead an offense. They can lead a game-winning drive, and they obviously have the offensive talent on both teams there to take that. But if they have gone ahead with 2 minutes left and it's the opposite team going the other way, would you have the belief that your defense could hold them out if the opposition was going on a game-winning drive? I don't think either of those teams could hold that in high confidence.
Yeah. Okay. Josh,
yes,
resident Seattle fan.
I'm so pleased we're here. I'm so pleased we're doing it this week. Great point about the Bucs. I think the knock which we had on them was exactly what you said. Are they the high octane level of offense? Can they continue to put up those points? What we know, Brady is brilliant at managing games and winning games, and that's shown in his career record. My 3 are the exact same as Chris's. Packers, Bucs, and Seahawks are realistically the only 3 which I see. I do have 2 outside ringers who could be there for the NFC because the divisions are that much closer. But for the Seahawks, I think, it was against the Philadelphia Eagles, but their defense looked really good once again. It felt like a Seattle team, save for the game-ending drive for the Eagles where they put up 8 points with a 2-point conversion. I really didn't see much from them, and they had one other good drive. The rest of it, they were just being sacked. And Philadelphia Eagles offensive line has been poor this season, but as a Seahawks fan, it was so good to see once again a Seahawks team playing so well. DK Metcalf had a great game, but overall the offense wasn't particularly dynamic. It didn't need to be, but they're easily my number 1 in the NFC still, the Seahawks. I think a biggest part of that for me is actually Chris Carson. Just watching him run, what he brings to the team is something completely different. I mean, there was one run he had for the second Seahawks touchdown of the game. Watch it back if you haven't. He ran through about 5 different players. He was being pulled back by 3 players at the 1 or 2 yard line when he outstretched to make the score. That's coming back from an injury. Suddenly I see Seattle in that high tier that I did previously.
There you go. Okay, I think we can tell from that passion, Josh, that you traded for Chris Carson in our fantasy league. We can see why. Yeah, I mean, interesting. Yeah, I mean, we're on the discussion of running backs. That was something we're definitely going to talk on in this pod going forward. Value of running backs. You know, how does an elite running back versus a league average running back affect your team? We'll have that discussion at a later date for sure. I saw a tweet earlier this week that said Brady is the GOAT, but Rodgers is the best quarterback ever. And I thought that was an interesting one. And I kind of, as a Packers fan, I get it. And I do think that is probably the situation right now. I think Mahomes is very likely to take that mantle, possibly both of the mantles very soon. But one team we haven't talked about that I'm thinking of. But first of all, I'd like to come to Connor and get his thoughts on the NFC. We've had 3 teams really so far, Connor: Packers, Bucs, and the Seahawks. Who do you like out of those? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no. So I think I know what team you might say, or what you're about to go on to. And it's something that I suppose I've seen a little bit pop up over the last week or so. And obviously at the stage we are in the season. But obviously you can't fault the teams that have already been mentioned. So by no means am I underselling those at all. I completely echo the points and agree. I do think the Rams are also an interesting one looking into it for the rest of the season. I've read a few reports highlighting the versatility that fits into McVay's team, his style of management to make this a more dynamic, versatile team, and that fits a lot better than the team he used to have. With one of the reports I read having said that this is probably for him his best team, although obviously he has gone on to do further things, had some great winning records. So I think the Rams are also definitely one to highlight for the NFC as well, and I wouldn't be too shocked if they went on a little bit of a run.
Yeah, you have some thoughts on that, Josh?
Go ahead. Yeah, I know, and interesting, Connor. I don't know. I won't put words in Henry's mouth, but I don't expect the Rams were his team. Maybe they could have been. The way which I see it is what Sean McVay brings to an offense. Great offensive-minded coach, but I don't think he could catapult a team with a top-level quarterback. We haven't seen it. I feel like what he brings to the team is a level of wide receiver play schemes, which benefits an average to poor quarterback like Jared Goff more than it would benefit a top tier level quarterback who's better at progressing through their reads, has a bit more options available to them. For me, I thought you were going to mention the Saints. Obviously, they're sat at 9-1, top of the NFC South. So I'd be interested to see what happens with them. But my actual 4th team in my rankings, so the Cardinals, again an NFC West team, which talks to the strength of the division, considering the 49ers just beat the Rams, you mentioned, Connor, as well. And the Cardinals are probably the dynamic one, a bit like we were talking about with the Bills, where you don't necessarily know what you're going to get. If the A-team Cardinals turn up on the day, then they could beat any of those teams in the NFC.
The reason I didn't mention the Rams to that, the reason I didn't mention the Saints to that point is probably, and yeah, they've won. Probably due to a little bit of turbulence and uncertainty moving forward with that team now. Fair enough. Yeah, they're on a run. They've got a good record looking back, but I think and it could be that this change of QB at the moment could go off and do wonders for how they then go off to perform, because it's a different style of play and whatever else around that. But I also do think there's a little bit definitely of uncertainty around that team, and can they keep it up? Does the momentum stay, or do they fall off? And like you said, that NFC West division is so strong, so it could be any one of those teams that can also make it out. And
Yeah, the Saints were my team, Josh. That was who I was going to mention. It's crazy to me how they're being so overlooked at the moment. You mentioned that they're top of a very good division, and they've absolutely battered the Bucs twice. Both times this season, just absolutely annihilated them. Not even close games. That's been with Breeze. So I think it's really obviously essential that for any team that they have their starting quarterback fit. I think after watching the Broncos game, they've really got to consider Jameis. They've got to consider getting Jameis starts if Breeze is going to be out any longer. But for me, they're such a complete team. They're so well coached. I think they have to have a chance. They're in my top three. Seattle's currently not there for me. I just think they've been too inconsistent. Look, stalling on offense at strange times, despite the weapons that they have. So for me, I think the Saints are a really well-rounded, well-coached team who have a really legitimate shot of winning multiple playoff games, particularly if they lock up one of the top two seeds and they get a home route to the playoffs. I think playing in a dome with Breeze is key. Keep him in the dome. Don't make him go to Lambeau on the road or something like that. That's going to make a huge difference for, what is he, 39, 40-year-old quarterback now. So for me, Saints would be right up there. Josh, you've mentioned previously, and I have to give you credit for this. I think it was 3 weeks ago you mentioned the Vikings, and I had a little chuckle. And since then, I think they're 2-1. With another great comeback win this week. What are your feelings on them?
Yeah, if we were talking dark horses for the playoffs again, that they would be a horse now. I think last time you deemed them another type of animal, but I think they would firmly be a horse. They've got Dalvin Cook cooking, obviously not this week as much, but pardon the pun, that was awful. Justin Jefferson, yeah, they've got Kirk Cousins at quarterback, but their young defense is starting to get it a bit more together. They've got their superstar wide receiver, as Chris put it, in Adam Thielen. So yeah, they've got all the right pieces to make a good playoff push.
For sure, yeah. I would be fascinated to see what this offense would have looked like if they'd have managed to keep Diggs and added Jefferson. Now that would have been explosive. But yeah, I have to give you credit for that one. I don't know how the Panthers are 4-8. We really like them on this pod. I think we really like them as a young team. And I think one of the things I'd really like to speak about next week is who could we see going from worst to first? Who could we see that's really struggled this year? Maybe they're out of the playoffs already. Maybe they're going to have double-digit losses. Panthers looking like in that category. But that we would really like next season, that we think they've got a chance of making the playoffs. So that's a discussion we're going to have next week. And any listeners out there who have a team that they think might be in that category, might be able to bounce back and win their division, we'd love to hear it. So if you've got the time, just drop us a comment and we can pick up on that next week and get stuck into that discussion. But thanks for that, guys. Any closing thoughts on the Super Bowl race or playoffs? Brilliant. Well, that was a really good discussion. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, thank you.
Thanks for that, Henry. Yeah, some great food for thought. Please do let us know if you have any worst to first teams for us to discuss next week. Now it is time for Connor's In the Slotbusters. Connor, take it away.
Yeah, so we're back. And yeah, hopefully this one's a little bit easier or a little bit harder for Josh's mind. I'm sure he'll get this within split seconds again. But we'll go straight into it. Following last week, we don't need to go through the rules of the games anymore, as long as everyone understands exactly what we're looking to do. That's a nod of heads from everyone around the room. So that's perfect.
Why don't you take us through the rules anyway, Connor? Just a really brief synopsis.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those who missed last week, we've got this is episode or game week 2 of In the Slotbusters, which is a game where I give a cryptic clue that describes someone from around the NFL. And everyone's got a guess. No one knows. We've not discussed this before. I've not shared this with our co-host. This is the first time everyone's going to hear it. And everyone gets a week to think about it and come back with answers for next week's podcast at the beginning.
Yep, and the listeners let us know in the comment section on YouTube.
Exactly. Exactly. We had no comments last week, but appreciate that was game week 1 for the podcast. So I understand if people are a bit shy to comment, that's absolutely fine. All 57 of our listeners last week, it is okay to post comments to let us know that you've got the answer or you've not. So this week's clue, cryptic clue to describe NFL individual is I'm used to make videos. They're not old, but I have hundreds of them. So I'll repeat that. I'm used to film videos. They're not old, but I have hundreds of them.
I've got it.
Well, you can tell us next week. That's
I'm not going to give it away.
To yourself.
I'm confident.
Can I just add? I was writing it down, so give me 10 seconds, and then we'll give Henry.
Yeah, I was writing it down as well.
Yeah, but just a point on Connor's number of listeners we had from last week. Do leave us a comment, because at the moment we can't tell how many of those listens were Henry. So it would be nice to know that at least one of them wasn't Henry.
I think it's fair to say I'm our biggest fan.
Yeah. Oh, don't take that away from Joe. Joe, prove us wrong. Come on, guess this
Joe,
one.
He'll get it.
And what we also did, Connor, we changed the prize this week, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah. So we decided. I know I said I wouldn't steal your thunder, but here I am.
Go for it.
After you tried to kick me out when you claimed there were only 3 hosts, I thought I've got to do my part to cement my reality on this podcast. So what we will do is, if when you make your comment of which answer you think is the one for the In the Slot Busters this week, let us know your favorite NFL team. We will send a Riddell Pocket Pro Micro mini football helmet for your favorite team to you in the post.
Yeah. And to that point, for last week's prize, because no one guessed on YouTube, I will not give away what the prize even was. So
it was a PS5.
For next week. For next week, there you go. There's a bit of a tip and definitely more of a reason to comment.
I think I've definitely got this one as well. I think it's just down to you, Josh.
Yeah, I'll admit I haven't got this one. So obviously it works in different ways, Connor. You've gone for the easier one that stunted the smart person of the group. just on that note, whilst I've insulted everyone and every one of our viewers who actually got it immediately, unlike me, let's move on to COVID. Chris, take it away.
Cheers, Josh. Obviously, the big news of the week just gone was the Ravens at Steelers game. You all know it was postponed once, twice, thrice. It's been played as we record tonight. And the Ravens actually had 10 players added from the practice squad to play this game. The Steelers, we have missing James Conner, Stephon Tuitt, the defensive end, and Maurkice Pouncey, the centre, was a late add. So we'll see. I haven't checked the score since Eric Ebron plays, so we'll see what happens at the end of the game. Cowboys at Ravens, obviously, because this game was moved. Next week's game has been pushed back to a Tuesday night game. And this could actually allow Lamar Jackson to play. So those of you that have him in your fantasy teams, he might be back. Not that he's been quite the player he was last year. Superstar wide receiver Adam Thielen has been activated off the COVID IR. So that'll be a big boost for Justin Jefferson on the other side. And obviously Kirk Cousins playing really well. Another player that's been activated, Myles Garrett, the pass rush of Cleveland Browns. And that's pretty much all there was. I did pick out an absolutely stellar name for the Carolina Panthers who we were just talking about. It's Yetur Gross-Matos. The rookie defensive end has been placed on COVID AR. I just thought, what a fantastic name. It doesn't make any sense at all. Yetur Gross-Matos. And the last bit was just the San Francisco 49ers, due to an increase in the COVID outbreaks in the San Francisco Bay Area. The local authority has placed a ban on professional and non-professional sports teams practicing or playing matches. So for their next 2 home games, they're going to play at the Arizona Cardinals State Farm Stadium. That's their next 2 games. I think the original ban from the county was a 3-week ban, but I don't have that in front of me. And that's pretty much the wrap up.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, we got to pay homage. Another pod that we both listen to that's part of our other fantasy league. They did pick up on Yita Gross Matos. They have a segment looking at interesting names around the league. Another one, which they haven't picked up on yet, which I suggested, Lil Jordan Humphrey. Can you believe that is someone's first name in the NFL? Lil Jordan. That is his legal name. Yeah. His dad is not Lil Wayne. Nothing related. But that was his name that he went for.
Wow.
Also, on the COVID section, not relating to the NFL, but as a fountain of knowledge that we are here as medical experts, UK has become the first, country, I guess you would classify it, to approve a Pfizer vaccine that will be rolled out next week for COVID. So hopefully that goes well. We can get back to normality in the NFL, in sports, and in the world alike. We can put this behind us and, go again for next season. Enjoy the rest of this NFL one. Well, thanks for taking us through COVID, Chris. Next thing, Henry, why don't you take the lead on this one? Last week we were discussing quarterbacks. We were talking, there's a few points we want to revisit on what we were discussing, particularly 2 quarterbacks.
That's right. So last week we had some good discussions about quarterbacks and 2 names that came up. 2 names that split opinion as well, I think, probably on the cusp between some different categories. Carson Wentz of the Philadelphia Eagles and Desean Watson of the Houston Texans. Both had massively contrasting weeks this week, I think it's fair to say. Watson really looking fantastic, particularly since Bill O'Brien left, which does seem to say a lot. And Carson Wentz with another really dismal performance. Now, the increase in fans calling for him to be benched, with the young rookie Jalen Hurts sitting right behind him. Thought it'd be good to have a discussion about what we think about each quarterback and how perhaps this season has changed our perceptions of them. And I'd actually really like to start with you, Josh, because you mentioned previously that you felt, or that the general perception of Wentz was sort of that top 15 level, had been a Pro Bowl quarterback just 2 years before, I think. How do you feel about Wentz now? How has this season changed how you view him?
Yeah, great question. And we touched on it last week. Obviously, for me, he's ranked number 27 quarterback, which tells you exactly where he sits in the league, in my opinion. I know Connor was much higher on him, basically because of his upside. Chris was kind of advocating for him continuing to start into next season. I'd love to see whether that's the same opinion they both hold now after another week. When you've got a high draft status quarterback on the bench, like Jalen Hurts, obviously it makes it tough for any quarterback to be there. But I think what he's shown is that potential at that second tier of college football really hasn't translated to the NFL. He's not been helped in a number of ways, but I think his career is pretty much spent. Maybe at best he can hope for a Teddy Bridgewater style comeback at some point on a different team. But I think with the Eagles, he's done.
Bold, to the point. Chris, what do you think?
Well, I didn't actually see the Seattle Philly game, but I did pick out a stat that I did see bouncing around on Twitter. And Josh mentioned the Eagles O-line earlier. Carson Wentz this year is on a career high for sacks. Last year he had a career high of 37, and he's already surpassed that record. So ahead of the Seattle game, he was 46. I don't know how many he took in that game, but definitely, as you said, Henry, there's definitely more pressure with Jalen Hurts. He completed 1 of 1 attempt. There was a lot more fan noise, fan pressure for Hurts to take more snaps, and he's not had more than 1 attempt thrown in any of the games that he's played. So is it time they start to move away? I'm still not convinced. Otherwise, why would they not have given him more opportunity at this stage?
Yeah, good point, Chris. And yeah, just to add to that, Carson Wentz is the most sacked quarterback in the league. He took 5 from a Seahawks defense. So, yeah.
Connor, what do you reckon? What are your thoughts on Wentz?
Yeah, I think I stick a lot to what I said last week on him. I think he's a very unfortunate quarterback. He hasn't had a lot of the weapons that you like that he'd want to have. If you're looking at it, do you have a Metcalf? Do you have a Hopkins? Do you have a Antonio Brown in his prime? Do you have someone like that? Like, no. and does he have an O-line that's protecting him? And I think I think with those things, he is unfortunate, but it was really interesting to hear this week that, especially following Chris's comments last week as well about, it might have been Chris or Josh, that by the end of this season, he's going to be off the starting line of the starting roster. And it was really interesting to see that pop up in the news quite a bit this weekend around the NFL, saying that he was on his last legs and the team were genuinely considering that this could be it for him if he doesn't pull it out. So I do think he's unfortunate, and it could be one of the cases where you put him into a different system, put him into a different organization, and he could fly. He's got ups for sure. We know that he's scrambled really well historically. And he's done some amazing things. So, and I'm not saying to my other point that he's not had people around him, and he's not been able to create the plays, but he's not had that superstar around him to be able to get the ball over to.
Do you blame the Eagles GM for that, Connor? Because obviously they spent very highly this past draft with Jalen Reagor as a wide receiver. They've had Nelson Aguilar, who's moved to the Raiders, who's done very well there considering what people's perception of him was. Obviously, Alshon Jeffrey, they spent highly on him as a free agent. Eagles have been historically known as one of the teams in the NFL to have a top-tier offensive line. So just because this season suffered a bad or poor offensive line play, does that really demonstrate that he is still that level of player? And then obviously you've got Zach Ertz, one of the premier pass catchers as a tight end, which is a safety blanket you need if you are being pass rushed a lot as a quarterback and pressured a lot. You need a quick safety valve. And he's got Dallas Goedert, who I would argue would be a starter for at least half of the league right now as their top tight end.
I think it's a good point, Josh. And I'm definitely in the camp, unfortunately, where I apportion a significant amount of the blame to Wentz. I don't think the situation is that bad. I think the offensive line's drastically worse than it has been, particularly 2017, when he had his really only good year, when he had the likes of Lane Johnson fully fit, a healthy Desean Watson. But as we said, he has had weapons really throughout his career. They've tried to surround him with weapons, whether it's Watson, Jeffrey, Reagor, Ertz, Travis Fulgham's looked really good this year. Goddard, Miles Sanders in the backfield. I really do think that in general, he's had the weapons, he's had the availability. Now this year, undoubtedly, you both made good points about the O-line. That has really struggled. That's undoubtedly going to hurt him. But one stat that I picked out is throughout his career, so this is the 5th year with the Eagles, he's had 58 fumbles in his career, a huge amount. Added on to that, he's got 50 interceptions now, and including this season, he's already got a career high and league leading 15 picks this year, and that's against only 16 touchdowns. So for me, Wentz is absolutely not playing as a starting caliber quarterback, and I'd certainly agree with Josh, perhaps even lower at this point, whereas I would rate him in terms of the league's quarterbacks. I think the Eagles are in a really tough situation. Any other year, any other division, it has to be Hurts for me. You have to get him in. You have to see what you have. They're one game off the playoffs, and that means something. Clearly, that still means things to organizations to make the playoffs, even in years without fan bases. So I think that makes the decision a lot tougher. But yeah, go ahead, Connor. What are your thoughts?
No, so and to be fair, I completely, I do agree with that. Like he hasn't had it. He hasn't been making the plays. I suppose as an argument to that, I know you're saying there are weapons and have been weapons around him, but have they actually been weapons in the end for what he's been able to do with them? You see a lot of the wide receivers able to make plays for their quarterbacks as well. Obviously, we saw Hopkins do it a couple of weeks ago. That's obviously a highlight reel play, but we've seen the Odell Beckhams in the past do it, the Antonio Browns. Obviously, they've got good QBs around them in those points, but also at the same time, they are making plays, like a one-handed grab over your head. It's making that play. So yeah, and that's to that point. But I think separately, and I think that's a really interesting point about what you said. When are you going to give Jalen Hurts the chance. And it's what we saw the Dolphins do, and exactly what Josh said as well is it something organizational that's the issue there, and what they've gone on to do? Because if they're not giving Hurts the chance, why did the Dolphins give Tua the chance back when Fitzpatrick was actually performing? And what is this trust in Wentz to get rid of? And I know, obviously, you needed to get rid of Foles, but he was the one who went on to win them a Super Bowl. So that success was elsewhere. So why is that trust now in Wentz to not then go and play Hurts, just like what the Dolphins have done to put their trust into Tua?
Yeah, I agree. And I think really, realistically, the Eagles, I think, are not going to make the playoffs this year. Even if they did, they're going nowhere. I think a really important thing, and one thing that could be overlooked, is this is a stacked quarterback class, like really, really stacked. You've probably got 4 going in the top 10 now with Zach Wilson's emergence at BYU. You need to know what you have in Hurts, because you're going to probably be in a position where you can draft one of those 4. The more you know about Hurts, the better, in my opinion. You guys know how aggressive I am in terms of drafting quarterbacks. I think even if you take a quarterback, Hurts is still hugely valuable, either as a backup or a trade asset. Wentz would be as well. So I think the Eagles are going to have a real decision to make in this year's upcoming draft about whether to look at a quarterback. I think there is an argument about coaching as well. I think Doug Peterson, certainly the play calling has dropped off a cliff, and he's not helping Wentz as much as he has been in the past. And I think that's a fair point, Connor. Josh, did you want to come in there quickly and just round off this discussion?
Yeah. Thanks, Henry. And obviously, we know NFL franchises are rarely as aggressive at their approach to quarterbacks as you are. I would say it would typify the Eagles season if they somehow sneak into the playoffs, end up with a terrible draft pick range, don't get a player that actually helps them, get stuck in some sort of limbo period where they don't want to give it to Hurts or not. It's tough to give a rookie quarterback the opportunity right now, but I think we're all in agreement. Surely that's the direction they've got to go in. And just one point of house cleaning, or housekeeping, I should say, just whilst we're going through. Typically, I'm the one who's made the mistakes that no one spotted, but it wasn't Desean Watson that was the Eagles receiver. It was Deshaun Jackson. So just in case anyone out there was wondering if Henry thought Deshaun Watson had transferred from the Houston Texans quarterback to a wide receiver.
It's a great point to follow up on, which takes you into the conversation of Deshaun Watson. So it's a great segue.
It is. He was already thinking ahead, and it's such a nice segue because the next quarterback is Deshaun Watson, isn't it, Henry? And he is a quarterback now.
Yes, and he would certainly help that Eagles ego for sure. But good spot, Josh. Thanks for that. Deshaun Watson then. One that we've discussed before. I think on our first pod, I posed the question to you guys: is he overrated? And I think in general the answer was yes. And he is really starting to make me eat those words, because he's been sensational for the last 3 weeks to a month. One of the best quarterbacks in the league, undoubtedly, over the last month, and has that high end potential that some people saw coming out of Clemson in the draft. What are your thoughts on Watson, Chris? Has your opinion been sort of shaped over the last month? And is this a situation that we've talked about a few times with the Jets players or former Jets players being held back by Gase? Do you think it's a case where Watson was held back by O'Brien, perhaps?
It certainly seemed to be a toxic situation in Houston. Obviously, JJ Watt, superstar there. Love my superstars. He came out and was very diplomatic about the situation. Didn't want to say any negativity up front about Bill O'Brien, but you can't look past the fact that their record has significantly improved on what it was. They had a terrible start, so awful. And then they've come around, and Deshaun Watson has been the one of the catalysts for leading that on. They've obviously had David Johnson injured, so it has to come to the quarterback and his receiving corps. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens now that Will Fuller is on the PED 6-week ban, and now Kenny Stills has also been released. So your 2 top receivers are now not going to be there. So you're looking at Brandon Cooks, who has done it in various teams, and Kiki QT, who's not really been a big part of his time there at the Texans. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do moving forwards. I don't want to draw too much back on Carson Wentz, but do you happen to think that if Pedersen were to get sacked, or the GM was to get sacked, would the Eagles turn that around, or do you think that ship has sailed this year?
For me, no. For me, I think the proof would almost be, or the test would be, put another quarterback in that system, see how they cope, rather than change the head coach. For me, personally, I think the quarterback is more of the problem than the coach, but I think both are contributing to a really poor situation there at the moment. You make a really good point about the weapons. We've seen Hopkins traded away with Bill O'Brien, Stills now released, and now Will Fuller. This suspension actually takes him out of his contract with Houston, so he'll actually be suspended with one game on his new team, hopefully the Packers. Let's see, but that's really going to strip the Texans of even more weapons. The other thing to say about this, the legacy of Bill O'Brien lives on. No first round pick this year in the Laramie Tunsil trade. So it's a tough situation, but I think as a head coach or a potential head coach coming into a new job in the NFL now, the Texans have got to be appealing with Deshaun Watson. Would you agree, Connor?
Yeah, I do agree. Yeah, I suppose on the point of Deshaun Watson, we had a lot of things to say about him last week, and a lot to talk on about him, and I suppose a lot of negativity about him and if he deserves to be in a team. And I think that 2 weeks now he's shown very good reasons as to why we were wrong, and if he can keep it up, why we would continue to be wrong about his high level of performance and what he can achieve, given the opportunity to with an O-line that doesn't necessarily collapse on him.
Yeah, and fair to say, Connor, you were the highest probably out of the four of us on both Deshaun Watson and Carson Wentz. So obviously you got one right, one not so right, based on what we said so far. I'm really pleased you brought up the trade, Henry. Yeah, okay. From a new GM or a new head coach coming in, you've got less to put your mark on the team. You've also come in with an excuse because you don't have a first-round draft pick. And given how Laramie Tunsil has produced the past season and a bit, I actually think that he probably is worth that first-round pick. If I were a head coach or a GM in the league, I would equate him to a first-round pick, not a top 5, which the Texans pick probably now won't be. But I would equate him to a top-round pick. You know what you're getting, and you are getting a top-tier left tackle, which is such a valuable point, especially when you've already got Watson. For me, again, same as Wentz. He hasn't changed in his spot in my draft, in my rankings for quarterbacks. He's still just behind Josh Allen at number 6. But probably he's made a case that those next 3 are really chasing the leading pack. Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, and Deshaun Watson, I really hold the 3 as sort of the third tier of quarterbacks behind Mahomes in his own tier, and then Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers really just in the sort of 1.B tier. So, yeah, I think, great quarterback. He's done a lot to prove us wrong. I really knocked his mentality and leadership on a team. I think what he's shown is he's pulled that team. He is the leader right now, and he's proved me wrong. Fair to him, fair play to him. Great quarterback. Really interested to see how his career continues.
Yeah, that's the key for me, Josh, as well. How does he do with the new head coach? He's only had Bill O'Brien, and to be fair, has had a lot of success. Made the playoffs twice. So I'm excited to see how he does with a new head coach. Hopefully a young offensive-minded head coach. Would love to see him in Joe Brady's system, offensive coordinator of the Panthers. They've had a great year offensively. He was the LSU offensive coordinator when they had a lot of success. I think that would be an interesting fit. Maybe one to look out for going forward. But yeah, really good. And I think we're going to move on to some ones to watch for next week, Josh.
Yeah, thanks. Actually, I snuck one in. One in, and we spoke about it. I wish that Chris had gone last because he segued onto it. He loves a superstar. What was going on? Is Adam Thielen a superstar? Let's debate this one, because I feel like if anyone listened last week, and they listen to one thing. Adam Thielen is a superstar receiver. That insulted me personally. Connor, what are your thoughts?
I know where Chris is coming from. In the form of the league, no, he's not a superstar. In the form of that team, yes, he is. He would be considered a superstar within that team in that position as wide receiver. He obviously had that amazing run of non-drop catches a couple of years ago. He's put up numbers, he's performed, and he was able to be a bright star in a Vikings team that was struggling a couple of years ago. So in that position, I do know where Chris is coming from, and those are my points.
Yeah, that probably says more about the Vikings, in your opinion, than the NFL. Chris, what are your thoughts? You're the one who said it.
Yeah, just to come into the context of that, in the league, Adam Thielen is not a superstar wide receiver. Otherwise, he would be a first-round pick in fantasy drafts. He would be your Devonta Adams, your Michael Thomas, your Nuke Hopkins. They are the superstars. At the start of the season, if you had a little boy who supported Minnesota Vikings and you said, "Oh, you can't have Dalvin Cook. Who do you want on the back of your shirt?" They're gonna say Adam Thielen.
Unless they're Joe Bishop.
It might. Kirk Cousins, stay over there. Next season, it might be different because Justin Jefferson is the new exciting talent, but he is, along with Dalvin Cook, he is one of the focal points of the offense. He is one of the Vikings superstars, but in the grand scheme of the league, as Connor supports there, he is not a superstar like we would call Nuke Hopkins or Devonta Adams.
Great, yeah. And Henry, just to continue Chris's analogy about talking to the little Vikings boy, how do you explain to that little boy that they let Stephon Diggs go over Adam Thielen? Which of those would you consider a superstar objectively?
Yeah, this is a really good debate, isn't it? It's definitely Diggs. Diggs is the far more valuable player. I really like Thielen. I think he's an excellent player. Not a superstar for me, but I understand Chris's point. He's a Viking superstar, but yeah, Diggs is an incredibly valuable player. And I think we're seeing how good he is this year again. But I just had a quick look. Thielen's caught 11 touchdowns this year. He's having a great year. So both very good players.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, just a bit of fun. I thought. So sorry, Chris. You've been the subject of a little bit of abuse this week. I'm sure it will come back round if I'm still here next week's pod, and if I've not been ousted as the fourth member.
Connor to decide.
Team. Yeah. or vote below. I don't know.
Vote below. Yeah.
And I don't have a Twitter account, so that's obviously specific, wasn't it? But yeah, Henry, let's go to the one to look out for this week. I know you were telling me before the show you had a real curveball, so I'm interested to hear who your running back and receiver are this week.
Yeah, definitely. There's a receiver that's caught my eye the last month of the year, and I think it might be his time to shine this week. It's Gabriel Davis of the Buffalo Bills. John Brown's out injured, and I've watched his highlights. I've watched a few of his games, and he just looks excellent. So he's a fourth-round rookie this year of the Bills, and I think now he'll get the chance to play outside, opposite Diggs, and with Beasley in the slot. They play a lot of three wide receiver sets. Really think he's got a chance. I think he's got talent. I think with Allen in that offense, he's got the chance to do incredibly well. And I think this might be the start of him sort of cementing himself as an NFL receiver. Sherman's back for the 49ers. You'd expect him to focus on Diggs, but he may see some Richard Sherman throughout the game, which may make it more difficult. But really excited to watch him, see him get a first proper crack at it. My running back is Myles Gaskin, someone who I picked up off waivers in fantasy earlier in the season and did some really good work for me in fantasy. He's looking like he'll be back off injured reserve this week. And that Dolphins O-line's looked pretty good all season, and playing the Bengals defense, I think that's a nice combination there.
Yeah, thanks, Henry. It'd be really cool to see what Gabriel Davis does. It would be really nice to see him pan out. Connor, anyone who stands out for you this week?
Yeah, so I actually had Gaskin as well, so I won't go into too much detail on that any further. My wide receiver. I think it's his time to shine. Maybe it's the same thing. It's the festive spirit. It could be he's in a good mood, or it could be that he's up against the Cowboys. It is Marquise Brown, and let's see if there's a game from him. So I think he could be a one to watch.
Connor using reverse psychology tactics and trying to get Marquise Brown to have a bad games and his Cowboys have a win. Let's see if it works for you, Connor. Chris, anyone who stands out for you? Not Antonio Gibson.
I love that man. I've gone for a receiver on the opposite side to Henry's pick. I love Deebo Samuel as well. He's starting to really make that offense tick. There's starting to get fit and healthy players back. Raheem Mostert should be back properly. Obviously, Kittle's out. Brandon Ayuk should be back, but Deebo Samuel just gets the ball. He's in sweeps, he's in screens, he's in play action. He's constantly finding ways to use him. So Deebo Samuel is my wide receiver to watch. And then I'm going to pick Jonathan Taylor / Nyheim Hines for my running back to watch against Houston. Whichever one plays more is going to have a big game. Obviously, Adrian Peterson had a good game against the Texans. And I want to say Jonathan Taylor, but I'm not sure if he's come off the COVID list because his partner tested positive, but I'm not sure if he has or not. I didn't quite see that in my research. So one of those two will have a big game.
Yeah, it's always nice when we can leave the fans with one player to go away with, not hedging our bets with a 50-50 backfield split like that. So I'll let you get away with that one, Chris. But go on.
To be fair, I did write Jonathan Taylor, and then I debated whether, because I'd heard he might still be on the COVID IR list. So that's why I put / Nyheim Hines. But if he's fit, I would go Jonathan Taylor.
Okay, good. It's nice to peg you down for one there. Now for our NFL picks. Chris, what are those this week?
Cheers. Just a quick reminder of last week's scores. So we now have a total of 40 picks across the season. Josh and myself this week got 4 out of 4 correct. We had the Chiefs, who were substituted in for the Ravens-Steelers game, which was postponed, Washington football team, Vikings, and the Giants. So out of 40 across the season, Josh now has 20. Connor is 18. Henry is 22 after scoring 2 this week. Connor got 3. Connor got 3 this week, and then I'm on 27.
What's your back? What's your back?
That's pretty good. That's pretty good, Chris.
Yeah, you just keep on copying my picks, Chris. You'll do just fine.
Well, I will do that, and we will be fine. So this week's picks for week 13. Josh, we're going to come to you first. It's the Rams 7-4 at the Cardinals 6-5.
Doesn't being the best predictor picker this week at least afford me the opportunity to relax a little bit? I don't know. This one's a tough one. Obviously it is. 49ers just off the back of a tough win against a division rival in the Cardinals. Chris, what was the pick? Sorry.
It was the Rams at the Cardinals.
So Josh's pick, 49ers.
Yeah, 49ers. Yeah. I'm looking at, the problem is the NFL app's not updated to week 13. So I was looking, and then it looked like it was the Rams against the 49ers. So I was confused. So sorry, say it once more. Rams, Cardinals.
What Josh was doing there was waiting to hear what Chris's pick was so he could copy it. It's actually the other way around.
Most probably. So yeah, Josh, third time lucky. Rams 7-4 at Cardinals 6-5.
Cardinals 7-5, soon to be.
Thank you very much, Henry.
I'll take the Rams.
Connor,
please.
Yeah, I'm putting back in my comments from earlier. The Rams.
Okay, I'm gonna go with the Cardinals. With oh my god, it's with Josh. Josh, because you mentioned the 49ers, I'm going to come to you again. Bills 8-3 at the 49ers 5-6.
Thanks. It's so nice to keep on going first. I'll go for the Bills.
Henry?
Yeah, Bills as well. I think these are the 2 best games. I'm looking forward to this game in particular. Bills and 49ers probably my game of the week, I think.
Connor?
Yeah, I think the Bills for sure as well.
Yeah, all 4 of us there with the Bills. I agree with you, Connor. Henry, sorry. I think this one was one of my favourite picks of the week. Certainly for close games, perhaps. Also the Browns at the Titans. Both teams 8-3. I'm going to go Titans in this one. Henry?
Yeah, Titans for me as well. I think the somehow the Browns have stumbled to 8-3, but I think the Titans are looking really good now.
Connor?
I am also going to go for the Titans.
Chalk that one up for a clean sweep because that is the Titans for me as well. Those records, definitely flatter to deceive the Browns.
Yeah, we all know you don't like Baker Mayfield anyway. So the last one is Patriots 5-6 at the Chargers 3-8. So Justin Herbert playing really well, but the Chargers are 3-8, as I said, and Patriots 5-6 have been a bit underwhelming. Obviously, Cam Newton on still a contract, just a 1-year contract. Interesting to see what they do moving forward. Connor, we'll come to you.
Yeah, I think I'll back the Chargers for this game. Really not been at all impressed with Cam or the Patriots. So and obviously the Chargers, we've all said some really good things about. So yeah, Chargers.
Henry?
I'm going to take the Patriots. I'm going to go for Belichick here. I think the Chargers just find ways to lose. And I think this is one game where a rookie QB probably has a bit of a knockdown on his previous performance against a Belichick defense. So I'll take Cam Newton and the Patriots.
Josh?
Yeah, I'm actually with Henry on this one. Give Connor a chance to catch me up. We'll go 2 different this week, Connor. So if the Chargers win and whoever else we disagree, the Rams. If the Rams and the Chargers win, then maybe you catch me up again. But yeah, this one I'll go for Cam Newton and the Patriots.
Yeah, I'm siding with Connor. I'll take the Chargers. I think Justin Herbert has just played really, really well. I don't think the evil scheming of Bill Belichick will stop him. Austin Eckler is obviously back, another weapon for the Chargers to use. And that is the end of my section.
Thanks, Chris. And we'll mention, I think all 3 of us as co-hosts think we got the answer this week. So Connor, I forgot to mention when I thought I got it and I just sprung to my mind for some reason recently. Connor, why don't you take us through the cryptic clue once again and let us know how people can win and what they can win.
Yes. So to wrap up the podcast for this week, it's the 3rd mention of the in the Slot Busters game show that we're running here, for the chance to win your very own miniature helmet of your selected team. I believe Josh has the full details of the name of it, but we can. Once we start getting some guesses in, we can definitely sort that out and get that sent out to the winner of this week's quiz. And if not, I assume we would continue to offer a prize similar to this, continuing to move forward. So to recap on what this week's cryptic clue is, I'm used to film videos. They're not old, but I have hundreds of them. So let us know in the comments below. And I'm looking forward to being able to reveal a winner next week and hopefully get a prize off to someone.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Do remember to like, subscribe, and comment down below if you've thought of the answer.